What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 436 of Opinions May Vary. I'm your host, JR. Joining me, as usual, is my wonderful co-host, Alex.
Hello.
How are you? I'm gonna answer for you. You're tired.
I was just gonna go stressed. Lot of stress, but
because you are one day removed from like the grand opening of local theme park with all the scary stuff happening. So,
and there was a couple kerfuffles.
Oh dear, I'm gonna ask you about those offline. Yes, scary season is pretty much here. We're not going to get into that quite yet. We have two people patiently waiting for us to shut up so we can introduce them. Both of these people have been on the show in the past. No stranger to the show. Never together though. But this is gonna be a fun one. We got four people sitting all on individual computers, so there's going to be a lot of interrupting each other, talking over, and no idea when the next person's going to talk. So it's going to be a fun one. Joining us this week, two good friends of I like to think good friends of the show. We're joined by two artists. The first one being Mr. Daniel Govar. Daniel, thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks. It's fun to be here again.
Oh, I'm really glad you say that. We'll talk in a moment because we're also joined by also the first person to ever introduce us our show to live streaming, Mr. Tony Moy. Tony, thank you for coming back.
Yes, absolutely. Good to be back, floating on these internet waves.
This one we have the luxury of pre-recording. We are not live, at least. I don't think we're live.
No. I would have let you know before. I thought about it.
That was one of the more stressful but also really fun episodes that we've ever done. For people who maybe knew Tony, we've had Tony on twice. Twice? I think twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
So Tony's first one was in 2015. That was episode 178. Daniel's episode was number 222. That was 2016. And then we had Tony back on in 2018. And so the live stream was at episode 341.
341.
I was live streaming my art and talking with you guys on Twitch. And I think we had some audience feedback and everything else like that in the chat and whatnot. So
it was a good time. It was genuinely, I like watching people on Twitch. Twitch is kind of like a great time waster. Like, oh, I have 10 minutes to burn. Let me pop on Twitch, see who's doing something. And it was neat to be able to see people live reactions and not just people who listen 6 months later and then drop a comment on Facebook or something like that. But it was also very stressful because if you say something stupid,
there's
it's
no
there
button.
forever. But anyways, we are pre-recorded this time, but still, we're gonna have a lot of fun. There's a lot going on. Obviously, a lot has happened since the last time we've talked with both of you gentlemen. So there's a lot to catch up on. But first off, how you guys doing? How you guys been? It's been quite a year.
I've been great. I've been surprisingly busy. I think when everything, when the world ended, I kind of, I don't know. I was looking at it as a mini vacation at first. I was like, sweet, I get a break for a minute. This is going to be nice. And that lasted maybe 2 weeks. And then after that first initial shutdown of 2 weeks, I just got bombarded by stuff. I had 2 books that came out at the same time, back to back. That was literally right. Basically, the books arrived from China as soon as boats were able to flow again. And they were first on the boat. They were already technically on the boat from China. So they had to be, quarantined for a month. And so then I had my first art book, Daily Sketches, Volume 1. That's 200 pages that came out. in March, and then the following month, the graphic novel that I illustrated the year before came out, Tuskers. That's all concerning elephant poaching. So yeah, back-to-back books, both fulfilled for Kickstarter. So I had Kickstarter fulfillment for like 6 months.
Damn.
Yeah, lots of sketches and books, and then on top of that, bizarre projects that just kind of fell in my lap out of nowhere. Random people, dropping my name to this publisher, and covers, and just random stuff. It all seemed to kind of come and go, and it was weird. For the first year, I didn't kind of actively take on commissions. I did a few when people asked, but I didn't put it out there that I would be doing any. And then this year was the opposite. This year I've been wanting to get back to commissions. So
I'm glad that because we heard so much of the people not being able to work, people losing their jobs. I'm glad that you were able to kind of get through that, and it sounded like that the timing with shipping was pretty.
It worked out. Yeah, bizarrely it worked out.
Yep.
I think the other positive is that Tony and I will probably talk about this at the same time. We're kind of like, I would like to call us fringe artists. Do you think that's accurate, Tony? Fringe?
Yeah. I would put that in. I would,
because we skate we skate like 2 or 3 different sort of realms of the art world. We do comics work. We have done lots of comics work, and then on top of that, we also do fantasy work, stuff for gaming, and then we also do bizarre stuff for like publishers that for books and things of that nature. And then we do
illustration work and stuff like that.
Exactly. And then we also do like
advertising.
Yeah.
Or something.
Random stuff. So we're kind of like, we do a little bit of all of that. And I feel like that's part of the reason that I think we fared a little bit better than, I would say, like, diehard comic artists, which I feel like they had a tougher go of it because conventions are such a part of that culture. And when, distribution stopped for comics for a while, I know that really hurt people, because publishers kind of pulled back a little bit. Like everybody, there was a recoil. And I'm not even going into all the stuff with Diamond. Like that was a whole nother issue.
Right.
So it was just one of those, like, I feel like it had more to do with the fact that we kind of, at least for me, I kind of skate a bunch of different, I'm in a lot of, I have my hands in lots of cookie jars.
When you have the ability to create art on a couple different levels that doesn't solely serve one, like, not just drawing Batmans and Spider-Mans, right? That particularly locks you into comic book and MCU and sort of that fan art sort of realm. But if you can get into you can get into the fantasy, you get into a little advertising, you create pieces of art that stand on their own, that like Dan's great at that. He'll paint something that doesn't belong to anything, and it's just like a combination of like a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of weird fantasy thing, and it's just this piece where people are like, wow, that's just a beautiful piece of artwork.
Right.
All that stuff really helps. When you're as aimless as the world was for the past 20 years, or past 2020, I meant, not 20 years, man.
Right.
2020.
Tony, how have you been?
Well, when the world shut down, my body shut down. It took me a while to recover through COVID. I caught it pretty early, and had a pretty bad case of it. So I was going out of it, and realizing that I had some recovery time, that it wasn't just going to be, I had the flu and you get better from the flu, and a day or two and you're ready to go. I was going to have some time to like try to get my body back into shape was something new that I wasn't expecting. So it did take a while for me to get my legs under me. And then you know, the art, the kind of trying to create art, and you know, I did a few things that were, I did with all the BLM protests that were happening. I did a portrait of Martin Luther King and stuff like that. That was used in a Martin Luther King memorial over on his birthday. So it like have piece of arts that were just used all around. Very interesting. You know, had some art that got into Wall Street Journal, you know, stuff like that.
It
Yeah,
sounds
let's
like
talk a little bit about that, Tony. Where did that lead?
Well, one of the things that was very interesting about 2020 is that I kind of went from artist to kind of part-time day trader. I had a lot of refunds from conventions and things like that, from Airbnbs, from some conventions, and just, you know, a hotel here or there, stuff like that. And so this was all money that I had set aside to invest in myself to make more money in 2020. And since I got a decent chunk refunded to me, I was kind of like, well, what do I do with this now? And decided to start playing the stock market. And in 2020, you couldn't help but play a little bit of the stock. If you were playing the stock market, you couldn't help but hear a little bit about this small company called GameStop. And in that world when everything blew up, and when that fateful weekend where what was it?
A lot was happening.
The lot was happening. They shut down. I painted a picture of the Wall Street Bets sort of logo as a superhero, and decided to put it on Reddit. And a writer from Wall Street Journal like caught some of my comments and caught some of my art and like, hey, I'd like to interview you. I was like, me? I was just putting on it. I just did the artwork because it was timely, and hey, I can get some free likes, right? You're trying to get some social media cred. So I was like, I'll do that. And next thing I know, it leads down this crazy path from being on Wall Street Journal to working with some documentarists who are doing documentaries on the whole GameStop shenanigans and fiasco, and culminated with my new nickname of Tony Fox News Moy.
There it is.
There it is.
I will never let him live that down.
We around the time when that was really hot in January, we did an episode on it just to be caught up, and now we're 8 months later, and like so much more has been uncovered. And like, I'm glad you thought your documentary would be set and done inside of 3 weeks, but it's now months have gone by.
Oh yeah,
it'll be a full year maybe.
Yeah. It was crazy. I was on a documentary with Discovery Channel that was narrated by the Wolf of Wall Street. I can't remember his name right now.
Jordan Belfort.
There it is, Jordan Belfort.
Huh.
So that was very interesting.
I had to go back and look because I didn't believe you just now, Alex. I was like, that wasn't in January. That was in like April and May.
Yeah, it was January.
It was in January, which is both terrifying and also I can't believe it's. Because I remember when it was like 2 weeks later, like a friend of mine mentioned GME, and I was like, oh, we just did a whole episode on it. You should go listen to it. They're like, I don't care. And I thought it was dead. I was like, oh, okay, that was a fun, 2-week period. But
no,
now
it's still going, man.
Oh yeah, the front page of Reddit has super stonks like every day. And I don't get it. Like I needed Alex to explain to me, hey man, what the hell is paper hands? I like to think I don't have paper hands, but like, do I?
Yeah. Show me your diamond hands. Show me your diamond hands.
Right. The painting he made had the character had diamond hands. Yeah, that was important.
Yeah. So the logo of Wall Street Bets is this like debonair suave, like kind of cartoony thing. I was like, well, it seems like he's really beat up, but you're kind of like the underdog, and I kind of made him into like superhero with diamond hands and put a bunch of other symbolism in there. And that's what got into the Wall Street Journal. And when that was coming out, I decided, you know what, let me put that up for sale. Might as well put it up for sale.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't spend too much on GameStop. Nothing I couldn't afford. I put like $1,500 on it or something like that. Right? Like, great if it goes, And I decided to put that piece of artwork up for the amount that I invested in GameStop. and so I put it up on my website. I type it all out, and I decided to say, hey, I'm going to take 75% of the proceeds and donate it to math and science education for kids, right? Because the opposite of like the finance and Wall Street is science and education. So.
Right.
And as I was writing, I was like, okay, well, it's up on my website now. I'm going to craft my social media post. It took me about 10 minutes or so. And I went back to grab the link, and I was like, hey, my link, it says my inventory is 0. Like it's sold out. I was like, wait, what happened? And in that period of time, someone, because that article that came out that morning, someone went to my website, saw that it was up, and in that 15 minutes or so, bought it.
Damn.
And I was like, okay, well, that changes it. And so then I took that money and I donated it to math and science education for kids, and then he matched it again. So this guy, whoever it was, I put about $2,500, $3,000 or so into.
Well, that's cool.
Into science and education, and I thought it was really cool. So
it's so frustrating to like work so hard on crafting your social media posts, and then like it's just ruined.
I'm like, damn it, this was gonna be good. I was like, hey, it's up, and I'm gonna donate the money to, and like, oh, okay, someone already bought it. Like,
it's a hard lock life.
It is. Artists,
For Tony.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad
when things sell so fast and you can't keep your artwork on your website so that you can actually have a store to sell art and it just sells out right away.
I don't know how that is, Tony. I don't know.
That's just, man, it's just frustrating.
I'm sure you'll recover. We're thinking of you.
Thank you. Someone is.
Justice for Tony.
I'm glad you were able to recover. I remember hearing about you getting sick and what it was doing. So it was very scary hearing all that shit. But I'm glad that
it was equally as scary going through it.
Right.
It wasn't cool checking in on a daily basis and like not hearing any improvement for a while either. That kind of sucked, dude.
Yeah.
There was a small after. It was so early on. I did not realize that it would become such a divisive topic across the nation. Right? Like I got it in end of March, beginning of April. And then when I kind of recovered and got back on social media again, I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that just wishes that I took more photos and videos and like tried to like blog it or vlog it or something like it. But I would not wish that upon my worst enemy. Maybe my worst enemy. That's about it.
There's always like there's that fight. It's like a battle between, do I want to document what's happening so other people like understand the experience, versus do I want people to see me at my weakest? It's like
it was. I actually actually found some of the video about a year later, like, Google or, they kind of say like, oh, this is what you were doing a year ago. And I actually found some videos that I never posted.
You're like, oh, dying?
Yeah. I was like, oh, shit, I was dying. And, yeah, I found some videos and I was like, maybe I should post it. But then again, yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. Like, it's you at your weakest.
Yeah.
And it's really awkward.
Did you guys lose any friends?
No one close.
No.
I thankfully, luckily, I don't know. Hopefully I have, people around who were willing to protect themselves and also like didn't get put into any situations that made them vulnerable.
Yeah.
But I've had friends of friends, and and at least maybe one or two people who I know personally who did catch it and managed to pull through. Okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
My wife and I are very fortunate in the fact that we get to work from home.
Yeah.
So it's been a little bit easier for us. I don't know anyone like directly. Like, my family has managed to stay healthy, which is great. My friends have stayed healthy, but as time goes on more, it's starting to become like it's getting closer, which is scary. You know?
Right.
It's no longer like, oh, my brother's sister's nephew's cousin knows a guy who got it.
Yeah.
Now it's, instead of like 5 steps
Everybody
away,
knows
like,
somebody.
it's like 2 steps away. So it's still scary. It's, again, like Alex said, we've surrounded ourselves with people who have done everything and made sure to stay as safe as possible. My wife is high risk and immunocompromised, so it's a very, and especially in the beginning, it was, I'd go grocery shopping at like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I'd come home, immediately shower, wash my clothes, like.
We have a grandparent that we see a lot. It's my son's only grandmother. Well, no, not his only grandmother. He has 2 others, but it's the only one that's nearby that he can actually see on a regular basis. And she's the only family that we really have in town. Right. So she's kind of a big deal. And she also is immunocompromised. So we've always been super diligent about masks and everything else. And let me tell you, in Florida, that's a tough thing.
Right. I forgot you live in Florida.
So, but I live in a part of Florida where honestly, my town, people wore masks indoors a lot, for the first year at least. It's only been this last, I would say, 6 or 7 months where I've really sort of seen people kind of be like, you know what, I'm done with this.
Right.
But even then, the part of town that I live in, people still wear masks.
Right.
So we'll be the last to catch it in Florida. Not that we won't, but we'll be the last. The thing that's scarier for me is, honestly, I mean, not to derail the conversation into COVID, because no one wants to talk about this shit anymore. Pardon my French. But the kids, like, I don't know if you guys are parents, but as a parent, that's the thing that's the most disturbing to me is thinking how the kids are going through all this. I mean, as parents, we've lived a little and we can kind of weather stuff, but telling a 5 and 6 year old to keep his mask up is like, huh? Like, right. I touch everything and I put everything in my mouth and I rub my nose 50,000 times a day. It's like, it's hard training to do for a kid.
It's like living a horror movie when it's like
much.
You have to be quiet. We're hiding in the closet. Yeah. You can't stop crying. Don't cry. Yeah. Like it's or in the quiet place. You can't make any noise. The monsters will get you.
Yeah. Seriously, it's the exact same thing. And what's funny is we played the You're Dead game. We did this. It was funny for like 5 minutes, and then I realized this is a terrible game because it's way too real. But we were like, okay, if you touch your nose or if you touch your face or if you touch anything, that's it. And you know, just to kind of illustrate how often he does it, 2 seconds in, he's like
Right.
touching his eyes and touching his nose. And I was like, what are you doing right now? He goes, nothing. I'm good. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, oh,
This isn't gonna last very well.
like, this is an uphill battle. It was like, next time I'm gonna just like put paint all over your hands, and then, you know, we'll see what happens. This is gonna be like, you're gonna look like a ransom note in 5 seconds. Or Jackson Pollock painting.
Same difference. Am I right?
Yeah.
Potato.
Yeah.
So out of the pandemic and the lockdowns, you know, there were a lot of people were bored, people were creating, people were making their sourdoughs.
Right?
So many sourdoughs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we were no exception over here. You know, my wife's always liked baking, so there's a lot of breads, and it's a miracle I was able to stay on my diet for the most part.
Like, how much do you weigh now?
There was a time where it was definitely pretty lax, but I'm back on it, and you know, trying to stay healthy. But she makes it difficult with all the delicious things. But anyways, we were learning, making things. People were creating, and I don't know if this is a direct result of pandemic, but now that we're halfway into the episode, I can finally let's talk about the paint bros.
Yeah,
we have there's a new thing here. And it's something you guys have been doing together, and I'm pretty excited to talk to you guys about it. So, what's going on? How did this come to be? What is said Paint Bros?
I'll start, and then you continue, Tony. Just so we don't step on each other. I guess I'm going to say this started from Tony trying to get me to go to Twitch. And stream on Twitch. But that's like kind of second to when I started doing a bunch of stuff on Instagram, because as soon as Instagram activated their ability to do live video, I was like, oh, I'm in, because that's my favorite platform. It's like Facebook without all the crap. And now it's, you know, Facebook's, you know, crap. So anyway. But yeah, I liked the video thing. And then when they activated, you know, the dual screen where you could have people, you know, come into your video, I was like, hey, this is a way for us to kind of chit chat, and we could literally once a week, like, hang out like it's a studio. And I think this was right after Tony was coming off of COVID. This was like one of your first things you did, didn't you? Wasn't it?
To stream.
We're talking about Instagram, not Paint Bros yet. Yeah.
Oh yeah. For Instagram, it was.
Because we did that
break from Twitch.
Yeah, we did that, but I mean, in terms of you and I both going on at the same time, that happened first, and that was for like 6 months, almost a year. We kept a regular Wednesday schedule.
The first couple of months was kind of random, and then we said like let's try to do after several months we're like, let's try to do something consistent, and we're like okay. And that was the first test for us to see
if we could keep a schedule.
Because it's one thing to kind of go and be friendly about it, like, oh yeah, I'll hop on with you and randomly and everything else like that. It's another thing to be able to hold someone accountable.
Yeah, and
that was right. And you guys probably have it too.
Yeah, building your audience. You know what that's like. Yeah.
Like there's a friendship, but then there's the friendship where like, hey, you got to do this, and I'm gonna keep you honest on this, or vice versa, right?
We have a schedule.
We have a schedule, and you know, don't use our friendship as a hostage.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. So we did that for a while, and then we started thinking, you know, that it would be really good if we kind of like, as opposed to us just, you know, chit-chatting and, you know, busting on each other's mothers and everything, it would really be great if we actually like kept topics. But the way Instagram is structured, it doesn't really allow for easy browsing of topics. And it doesn't really give you the flexibility of bringing in viewers outside of Instagram. Pretty much someone has to be a member of Instagram in order to view the live videos, which is super annoying because linking to it.
Or more importantly, they have to be part of your team. You're part of your followers.
Right. So you're roping in the same audience. Yeah. So we started thinking about, like, we put together a list of topics that we really want to discuss. I was like, dude, this is an endless list. Like, we could go on forever because we talk about this stuff all the time. Everything from, you know, the life of an artist to the life of somebody who hasn't become an artist yet. But, you know, we both had similar beginnings where we had different careers and then transitioned into art. And then, you know, the different paths that we took, which are bizarrely kind of similar, you know, between fantasy, comics, and then techniques. You know, we both do watercolor all the time, but we have very different styles. And we've also worked on pieces together, you know, that are able to harmonize. So I don't know, we just had tons of topics, even down to, like, you know, tools. You know, we did the last episode we did was on inking, and it was, you know, talking about inking techniques and all the different types of, you know, nibs and, you know, blade nibs, experimental stuff. We talked about textures and how to create it, because everybody's going into, you know, Inktober or Arttober. And, you know, we want to kind of be topical to, you know, help people out that might be getting into things like that.
And a lot of these conversations and sort of the riffing that Dan and I kind of do kind of spawn from the fact that we've done so many conventions and we've, like, painted next to each other. And just, like, random conversations that we would have, and we'd be at an Airbnb late at night working on commissions, waxing philosophical about the quest of becoming a better artist or something like that. You know, and at various times we both look at each other like, this is actually a pretty interesting conversation that other people would love to be a fly on the wall for. And we just never did anything about it for years, you know?
Yeah. There were times that we actually were like, okay, we need to write some of this down because this is good stuff. And it's only since we've been doing Paint Bros that we've been kind of like, okay, let's make notes. This is good stuff. This is what we need. This is what we should talk about next time.
There's also a little bit where we have to be like, hey, we can't, because we'll have a pre-conversation about what we're going to talk about. And we've had to limit ourselves because we'll start getting into the topic and be like, no. We can't get into it too much because we have to save stuff, and make it seem a little more spontaneous and fluid for the show.
Right.
You know? So we cut ourselves off once we have a topic and we're like, okay, good, I'm good.
Yeah.
You still talk about it? I can still talk about it. Like, okay, we're not talking about it.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'll get too caught up. The other thing that we've learned is to keep a clock. You know, make sure that you don't, because we could easily go like some of these topics. I mean, we've had to make a part 2 and a part 3 of some of them because they just could keep going. And we've also done. We wanted each episode to kind of stand apart from other sort of live, you know, things with artists, where we wanted to make it more like dueling pianos. So we both paint the same thing during the episode. We pick a topic or we throw it out to the audience and say, hey, tell us what you want us to paint or draw. And that's what we kind of, you know, we run with whatever that is. Sometimes if it's like a particular topic, like inking, for instance, that was the last one. It was, you know, okay, let's both do the same reference, and see where each other kind of goes with it. And it was really interesting with drawing the exact same photo. Oh, that was the last episode. You're right. I'm totally mixing it up. It wasn't even inking. It was how to use reference. And when to use reference and when not. And it was interesting to see 2 totally different images from the exact same photo.
Do you guys watch each other's images while you paint, or because like there's a lot going on since you're sticking to your topic, and you're talking about the process, but then sometimes glance at the chat and see who's live chatting, and then still we're focusing on your thing to make it, and then see like, oh, what are you doing?
That's an awesome question, actually. I don't really, I mean, this is for me, and then Tony, you should answer. I don't look at Tony's intentionally until I'm about 15 to 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
Because if I look at his, I'm going to start thinking about what he's doing, and it's going to be in my head. And especially if it's something where we were literally, bizarrely, we drew the exact same photo or something from the exact same photo, and bizarrely, we both put horns on the girl that we were drawing. And I don't know why that happened, because the pose was definitely not one of those like, oh, naughty, nothing like that. It was just bizarre how we both took it in like similar directions, but not the same. And like, you put wings, right?
I did. I went with
I was
horns,
this close to putting wings and going that way, and I was like, no, I'm going to turn it into like a satyr or something. And,
For me, I don't really care what Dan does anyway. So I end up looking at it a little bit more because my computer is sort of the control panel of things.
Yeah.
So he calls into me, and then I broadcast out. I happen to like look up and glance a little bit more frequently, just make sure everything's like all the meters are up, and like, oh, did that abrupt pause did Dan stutter a little bit? Was that a connection issue?
Right.
Or did my headphone go out for some reason? I leaned back and it got loose or something. So who knows?
It's usually me stuttering. The other thing that's, the only other reason that I typically look up is when I want to see if because what gets filmed is actually much wider. So sometimes I have to see what actually is being caught in the monitor. And what I'm drawing has to kind of exist within a certain window. So every once in a while I'll get too into the piece, and it's like, oh, no one's even seeing what I'm doing.
Has there been any sort of
occasionally have to look at chat? That's the other thing. The chat is constantly going, so we're trying to answer people's questions at the same time.
So it's a step more for me, because I've done Twitch for a while. So looking at the chat is a little bit second nature, but also holding on to a separate thread of conversation with Dan and I, and then also trying to focus on the art that's in front of you, because a lot of it's a little impromptu. Like the last one was completely impromptu.
Yeah.
So there's lots of little and then the technical stuff and everything else. So it's helpful that Dan like checks out the chat and everything else. But it's also a very tough thing too, to like, we'll go 15-20 minutes sometimes, like, oh yeah, there's a chat.
Right. And then suddenly there's like 20 questions, and one person's like, you can't hear Dan, and I'm like, oh. The other note is it's weird because there's kind of a delay once you hit that. I think it's like the hour mark or whatever. Wherever, like once you get into past that hour mark, there's a significant delay between the text that's coming in and what we've discussed and chatted about. So someone will be answering something that we asked like a minute or two back, and it's one of those like like what
again?
The text delay, like they'll be typing in responses to questions that we actually asked previously, and it's because when I'm looking at the monitor, there's actually a little bit of a delay on the YouTube channel.
Speaking of, with streaming on YouTube, because they've been kind of, at least recently, seems they've been dropping the big bucks trying to make their stuff good. They just signed like Tim the Tatman and Dr. Lupo to exclusive deals. Like they're bringing in like exclusive streamers and stuff. And like YouTube was always kind of like Twitch was always the place to be when it comes to streaming. And then YouTube, like I remember seeing a lot of numbers and analytics. It's like YouTube's gaining a shitload of ground.
Yeah.
How have your experiences been in terms of like, you know, from a user standpoint? Like, is it, and it's, I guess, Tony, this is, you'd probably be able to speak more to this having a Twitch for so long. Is it easier to stream there? How's the streaming quality and the service there? And also, is the audience any different, do you find?
One of the things that's really great about the Twitch environment is the fact that, you know, people will raid you or host you or things like that. There's, especially in the creative arena, like I could be streaming for my 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, and then I'll have another streamer come in who's garnered like, you know, 50, 75, 100 or whatever else, been streaming for the day, and then I have a new surge of people that come in and land and get to experience or know a little bit more about me. And that part doesn't exist on YouTube, right? Once you're a channel like relatively.
Mm-hmm.
Especially your live streaming, you know, your channel is on its own island. The difference, I think, for Dan and I is that we're bringing an audience from elsewhere, right? Like we have our followings, we have our fans from real life conventions to Instagram to Facebook, and we're bringing them on and joining us on YouTube, which has been incredibly helpful, right? We were able to get our vanity URL, you know, within a few days of just announcing that we were going to do something together. We didn't even stream yet, and people are like, "Boom, okay, we'll support you." And then starting off on any platform that you're starting off on, it's just going to be a slow. You got to persevere through this beginning part, especially if you're not just going to dump money at it, right? Which, you know, we're just humble artists over here, so we can't quite do that. But the numbers are there; they're slowly growing. You know, like when you do a live stream and there's 20 plus hours of video being watched, you know, you're like, oh, okay, hey, that's pretty good. You know, you think about YouTube and people put up a 5-minute YouTube thing, and if you get a couple hours of watch time on that, is, you know, that's the first metric, right? So I think we're in a good trajectory, and going to the conventions and the conventions opening and having a point where people can access us in a different way besides Instagram has been also very useful. Like Dan, you know, when Dan can talk a little bit too about it at conventions and shows, and you're like, hey, we have this YouTube channel, so if you want to follow us there. And you know, we get the people that are like, oh, I don't have Instagram, or oh, I'm not on social media, but everyone is on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, we also have like QR codes that people will like take a snapshot and immediately subscribe. Like having little features like that like will allow people to quickly jump on. And you can do that through Instagram as well. And that, you know, I have a fairly healthy Instagram. My Instagram audience is probably my biggest audience, like double the next biggest. And I think it's a slow build for YouTube initially, as Tony was mentioning, but it's one of those things where I'm seeing people jump over to it because they want to see that particular episode, and then they're subscribing. So I think the topics are a big plus, like actually having, you know, titles and topics that you can immediately jump to, and you don't have to kind of sift through what is that episode that they were talking about, blah blah blah.
Actually, just having an episode number is, you know, one day will be up to you guys in like episode 470.
Yeah, that's the dream,
impressive. Man. Like that is very impressive, you guys. Like, to be going that long and that persistently.
Didn't you guys give me a pen or something with that?
Yeah,
probably.
And you both got poker chips.
Yeah, that's what it was. Poker chips. I was like, wait a second, I have something, and I don't remember what it was now, but I remember that being significant. Yeah.
We have pins too. But
We're excited to be on episode 10 this week. So
Yeah.
When,
It's amazing how quickly it just snowballs
Yeah.
from there. Because honestly, when we were meeting, or at the very beginning of this, when Alex was talking about the episode numbers and like when it's like, oh, Tony first came on in 2015?
yeah,
yeah,
And in my head, I was like, nah,
that was last
shut
year.
up. It wasn't 20. Are you kidding? 2015?
They're like,
Uh,
shut your face.
Yeah, yeah,
Boston Comic Con.
yeah, yep. It was Boston. We were a couple, because back when we were ambitious,
You had a
and
table.
we did a couple years of tabling at Boston Comic Con way back in the day when it was Boston Comic Con and not
I actually
Boston
remember
Fan
this.
Expo.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it was,
we shared a table with our good friend Brett Kelly. What were you gonna say, Alex?
it was rad seeing like being a fan of Daniel's work and like getting commission from him. And then I think it might have been the next year we find Tony and I got work from him. And then like suddenly I see I think you two did a double, which was, I think it was Maleficent in human and dragon form. And it's like, oh, they
Yeah.
both worked on it. And I was like, what? I want that. I don't even care about Maleficent, but that's a great idea. And then like later on we see you guys and like you're next to each other. And you go, yeah, we do this sometimes. So we
Yeah.
can, once you make a friend, you could choose who you're nearby. And I was like, we never got that offer, but we're
Yeah.
just some podcast
Where's that
douchebags.
memo?
And so it's been really rad
really
like,
is
seeing this
handy.
come together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a couple of shows this fall where Dan's taking a break from the shows, for a variety of reasons,
Mhm.
and I'm a little bit at a loss. I will say, Dan. I'm just like, oh.
Next year, man.
Staying up
Next
on my
year.
own and doing commissions, like planning out the extra little things at a show.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
Don't have children, guys. when they're little, it makes life very, very hard, especially when your other half is also incredibly successful, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're both doing really, really well. This is terrible for our child.
One of us needs to be less successful.
Yes.
Suffering
Actually,
from
I hate to
success.
say it, but it's totally true. I don't know how how do like crazy power couples that have kids, like their kids must be total nuts. Like it's the only thing I can figure.
I want to come back to the live streaming for a second.
Yeah.
So having watched a few, we follow a variety of artists on our own via Instagram, and then I'll watch when some of them go live. And if they don't have a topic and they're just watch me draw, watch me paint, and that's
Right.
fun. But every 2 minutes, someone's asking what pencil is that, what paper is that, what ink you're using, what pen are you using, and they just get tired of repeating. Oh, it's this kind. Here, this is what, what, I'm just gonna. And since it's like you can't really put like a chat box under it, just to say the description of like, this is what the tool is. Stop asking. Whereas if you have a topic, you have a stream of thought, something that you're purposely getting through, it kind of eliminates that sometimes. Hopefully,
it does. That is a lot of the questions that we get in the chat are kind of directed towards the topic. It kind of focuses them a little more, and on YouTube we have the ability to kind of say like, yeah, if you have those kind of questions, pop it down in the comments, and we'll respond to you in the comments on those, so we don't forget or whatever else.
Mhm.
So we have a way to sort of delay or push off some of those really common or non-topic oriented, or if it's going to put us off on a tangent, in sort of a natural way that you actually don't get on Twitch, and you don't get on Instagram when you go live. So each platform has its own pluses and minuses, and this is us trying to learn a little bit more about the YouTube platform. So,
Have there been any sort of adjustments in terms of personal styles? Because like it's one thing when you're drawing side by side, and maybe at a show, you can go at your own pace. But like when you're streaming together, maybe one person works quicker than the other. Do you ever have to adjust and like be like, oh, Daniel's almost done. I need to speed this up. Or is it
Oh yeah,
does that ever pop in your heads at all, or is it just I'm just doing art?
we kind of ping pong. Like every once in a while, he'll be crazy ahead of me, and then I'll fall behind, and yeah, like, and then vice versa. Like it's kind of funny. It depends on who. You know what it is? It's whoever is expounding on whatever topic the most. Yeah. And yeah, there's definitely this like push and pull thing that happens.
The one thing that we have, the other thing that we have to be careful of is that for both of us, I think, when we're that penciling, like if we're painting, and then I can talk and paint at the same time. That is, you would think that's the more complex thing to do, but we can talk and paint all day.
Yeah.
When we pencil and are sketching something out and are trying to figure out what we're going to be painting or the exact dimensions and everything else, those penciling stages where our minds are trying to solidify what we're going to be painting, there tends to be a little more of an opportunity for silence to creep in. And we'll both notice, we're like, okay, one of us has to kind of like talk while the other one pencils.
Serious mode.
Yeah, it's like serious mode. Our minds can only do so much, and when we have a pencil in our hands, that's the most challenging part of streaming,
which is terrible because it's usually right at the beginning. There's usually this like point at the beginning where we're like, oh, what are we doing, right? But we also have to talk, so let's do some witty banter for a minute.
So I'll see Dan like sometimes like trying to as I am doing the intro or whatever, like introducing, like Dan will quickly like start sketching and he'll be quiet while I'm doing the speaking. Then vice versa in the beginning. So we've learned to hand it off. Like I don't know if that's on purpose.
No, we just take each other's cues.
We just kind of like reading off each other's cues.
We've tabled next to each other that we can easily recite each other's elevator pitches. And you think I'm kidding, but I'm actually right. It's kind of hilarious. We've got each other's spiels down to a science.
It's good on some hands because when Dan has to leave the table, and I'd be like, oh, there's someone actually interested in making a sale, and I'll do the pitch and be like, okay, he's ready to buy something.
I tend to forget how important the initial like layout stage is because that's how the rest of the piece is going to go. And I should realize that more when I see friends' posts or in a group that we follow, where if someone wants a jam piece to get sketches at a convention, they have to like pay someone first just to do an outline, just to be like, we want the Secret Six or the Sinister Six, and like whoever makes a lizard, like lizard will kind of be over here, it's going to be kind of be over there. And they'll lay out the page, and then they bring it to whoever they want to fill in and kind of use that shape or that space. And having to go into that blinds, it's like, oh yeah, that would be a struggle. But
jam. You're talking about jam pieces.
Yeah.
Especially with watercolor, because you can't really. There's only so much adjusting you can do during the painting process. Like once you put something down, it's relatively down. Like if your eye is if your eye is really crooked, like you're starting over.
So speaking of, we did it. Alex, go ahead, because I was going to go off topic.
I have an art question. So with some of Daniel's past Kickstarters, because I got the Mr. Trunk Builds a Wall.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
You did the interior,
yes,
like the front cover. You were doing these ink sketches or ink washes, and you just like say, what animal do you want? And I was like, I forgot this was an option. And go, can I have a bat? And just go, okay, bat, here it is. And you would post so many pictures of all these
hundreds,
all these animals. And I'm like, you didn't look up any reference, and you just knew what a bat would look like. And so for the both of you, it's, I think, is references in, is that one of your video topics so far? or like when to?
Yeah, we just did it last episode. Actually, was using
Human
reference.
reference. Yeah,
So
it was a human
how-
reference. But we talked about animals.
How
We
much
didn't really
do you
talk
have
about
to?
animals. I don't know why.
How much do you have to memorize or like just commit what absolutely everything looks like? Because I know some artists tend to have a photographic memory where they can recall images or they know the difference between, like, how am I going to paint an otter different from a seal? So how do you establish when you might need reference and when you know you can freehand it?
So certain animals, I would say I could pretty much do off the top of my head. Like an elephant, I know literally inside and out. Yeah, like I never have to look up elephant reference. I do occasionally, but it's one of those I don't really need it. You can even tell me what age elephant you want me to do. I'm serious. You can tell me Asian, you can tell me African, and did you know that there's actually like a difference in there are different African elephants. You have bush and forest.
Huh.
So yeah, I could tell you all sorts of stuff about elephants, let me tell you. There are other animals that I do have a tougher time with. I'm trying to think of like the one that, like, I'm really good with giraffes with their faces, but when it gets to their bodies, they have the most wonky, weird everything. and it's like, people are like, horses are hard. I was like, dude, draw a giraffe. If you think a horse is hard, you have never seen like draw an okapi. Like draw something really hard. Like, trust me, that's a horse is nothing.
Even I'm really impressed when I'm sitting next to him at a convention table and I see him just rattle off some of these animals. I know I would have to look up references for most of them, but I'm hoping, Dan, that you actually had to look up some reference for a water bear.
Water bear, come on, really? That one was easy. That one I actually did not. You know why? Because I just got through watching this Star Trek Lower Decks episode.
That's right, the tardigrade.
Or not the Lower Decks, but there was an episode with the tardigrade, and I was like, oh my gosh, Tony's asking for this, and I just saw one. I was like, I got it. Yeah. No, the tough ones are, you know what it is? I guess when Mr. Trunk came out, we had a 2-year-old. And he was just at that speaking point and drawing point when he was like always asking for animals. Mm-hmm. So it was constantly drawing animals for him to color. Like I would do a quick ink version and then he would color it. So I had to look up so many animals because he would never want the same one twice. And it got to the point where I was like, I think I've drawn all the animals. Like, I really don't know if there's another one. And, and then we started going through like, phylum, genus, species, like every single possible. And then we went into insects. We did a whole thing with insects, dinosaurs, like you name it. I've probably drawn something along those lines for him.
So as they say, it just comes down to practice. It's like, when you see an artist finish, when you see a finished page, no, there's 100 pages in the studio somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Surprisingly, like once you get into like, I kind of group everything into like cats, dogs. You have very particular groups. And once you get into those groups, it's actually a little easier. I mean, everything has, 5 fingers, even whales, when you think about it. All mammals have all of those same bones, and then it's just like, where are they located?
Yeah, you hit like the fundamental structures of everyone's skeleton.
Exactly.
Every animal has 7 neck bones.
Yep.
From the giraffe all the way down to like a whale. Right?
They just have different shaped ones. Yeah. Yep. And the location, like for instance, an elephant's knee. Where would you think it is?
And it's in the middle of its leg.
No, it's like, and it's like, that's the thing. It's actually, their knees are located like almost in their chest. It's really weird. Huh. Yeah, basically. And their knees, like, because of that, it almost looks like their knees bend backwards. It's really weird. Like, animals are kind of crazy, but when you think about it, all the fundamental things, as Tony mentioned, are the same.
There's one thing that I'm going to walk away with, it's cool catching up with pals that we haven't talked in a long time and making episodes and creating content and stuff. But I'm learning. I'm learning today. I'm coming away with knowledge.
Yes.
I wanted to touch on. We had talked about it a couple minutes ago, talking about tabling together and knowing everyone's elevator pitches and things like that, and just essentially being the paint bros, especially at conventions.
Yeah.
You two were two of the first people that I saw actively going back to shows. Now that shows are starting to open up again, at least some of them are. Some of them have said they're going to open, then whoa, just kidding. We're gonna stay closed for a little while.
Right.
But what has that been like? What has it been like going back to shows? What kind of factored into the decision to go back and start attending these again?
For me, it was a hard talk with my other half. Just how we wanted to approach it because of her mother and because of our son. Just thinking, how safe do we think this is going to be? What precautions are we going to take? At what point do we think it's okay? She wasn't really happy with me doing the first con in Orlando. But honestly, I mean, I think Tony will back me up. That was actually, in my opinion, the safest of the shows I've done so far.
They actually handle it very, very well comparatively to many of the shows I've done afterwards. With announcements, with people actually being active in pointing out and reminding people to raise their masks and keep them on and things like that.
And giving them masks if their mask was inferior.
So, I will definitely commend MegaCon and the people who helped put that together and were running it. That even at the time when in the media, lots of things were happening around in Florida, were exacerbating situations, like they handled it very well.
Yeah. I think it was interesting because a lot of the big people that were going to that con initially were pulling out because of the media coverage about Florida, not really noting the location of the outbreaks that were happening, which were almost entirely Miami. Yeah. So it was one of those, that's like 3 hours away, like it's not really that close. But I understand everybody's thoughts. But it was good. It was a great show. People came out. People were really eager, honestly, just to get out of the house again. Yeah.
Going back and doing shows for me as well was also driven a little bit, on an economic level.
Yeah.
Right. 2019 was the first year where I stepped out and gave up the day job and became like full-time freelance artist. And good chunk of that reasoning was because my conventions were doing well enough where I was like, okay, well, even if I just do a bunch of conventions, as I am trying to develop my own creative career again, I should be doing okay. And so 2019 was solid. Good conventions, good opportunities coming out. Did some was involved in some publications and things like that. So all around good. 2020 hit and it was taking 2 steps back, right? One step forward, 2 steps back, kind of a thing. And pulling into 2021, whereas Dan had his conversations with his family, for me, it was like, well, I have to take as much precautions as I can. I don't want to get sick again. I want to make sure everything's all well and done safely. And I don't want to be a part of something that the last thing I want to hear is if MegaCon Orlando blew up as a nexus of COVID right
super
afterwards.
spreader.
A super spreader event, and great. I am now a part of that, and I have a small onus to play on on a scenario like that. And so I really didn't want that to happen. But at the same time, I need having the ability to have an influx of funds that happens at conventions, selling prints, selling artwork, and everything else like that happens a lot easier at a convention than it does anywhere else. So that was in part, I didn't know what was going to happen. So I just kind of signed up for. So a lot of the conventions I signed up for in 2020, all was like, oh yeah, we're going to be happening in fall. I didn't know which ones are going to happen. And so I just kind of said, yeah, I'll do them to every single one. And so that's why I've been on the road for like the last 6 weeks straight.
Right.
You know, so because I couldn't say no.
How have the actual like shows been in terms of fans and organizers? Have things been relatively smooth sailing? I haven't really seen much. I haven't really been looking, to be honest, because it's just not. It's something that I mean, I don't even know if there's anything around us. I think Terrificon happened a couple weeks ago.
Connecticut.
But like, there's nothing. I haven't really seen much more.
Mhm.
How have people been at shows in terms of fans and organizers?
I think so far I've done Dragon Con, Awesome Con, MegaCon, and back in February I did the first con that I've had this year, and that was in Lakeland, Florida, and it was Central Florida Comic Con. I would say honestly the best shows have been all of them except for Awesome Con. Awesome Con was great, don't get me wrong. It just wasn't nearly the same sort of turnout. Like DC's crowd seemed to be a little bit more hesitant.
Right.
But all the other conventions have been busy. I mean, I haven't had a chance to really like every con. I was just completely exhausted each night. Two of those I was with Tony, and I know that we basically went back and drew it each night for MegaCon and Dragon Con. We were basically like holed up in the room every night trying to finish sketches and pieces for people.
Was it like having to flex a muscle you didn't use in a while?
Yeah. Funny that you say that. The one takeaway that we both definitely had after the first con was like, I gotta do some more cardio. Like, holy moly, I was not ready for all the like luggage traveling and everything else that you're just not. We were so used to originally, but after 2 years, I kind of lost that. Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed, I've been to MegaCon, Kansas City, Atlanta, Portland, Dallas, and in combination with kind of listening to Dan and some of the conventions he's done that I wasn't, a very interesting correlation is basically I've noticed is that if the area is red politically, you will get people showing up, and you'll get a lot more of them. In the places that weren't so red, you definitely get less people showing up at the convention.
Right. It's one of the when you think it makes
it's one of the things where like I expected nothing less, but when I can give examples of what was happening, I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but overall, I think regardless of the convention, all people that were there were masking, and they kind of understood what they were doing. And they ranged the gamut, just like during the years when it wasn't COVID as the backstory. You had the shows that were just like, holy cow, did not expect this show to be so crazy. And you have other shows where I've had it, and it's like, oh, well, it's okay, not horrible, not bad, but okay.
Are there any that you're particularly amped or excited to get back to? I mean, I know you mentioned Dragon Con. That seems to be a very popular one. Are there any that haven't happened yet that you're really looking forward to getting back to once things hopefully eventually start to open up more?
For me, I think Chicago, Emerald City, which are my last two,
Yeah.
they are definitely up there for me. Those are always like, I have friends in those cities, Tony for one, and yeah, I don't know. Those are two that are up there for me. New York, I'm gonna miss this year, but I know Tony's super eager, and that was one of the concessions that I made with my other half. I was like, I will not do New York this year. Okay.
C2E2, Chicago and Seattle will also be very interesting because we've never had a large conventions that would happen in December during the holiday season.
Yeah.
So and we get why they did it. They picked those dates because, who knows what would have happened in 2021. And so they picked the last possible dates they possibly could just in case anything did happen.
Honestly, I think part of the reason they ended up getting those dates had to do more with the convention centers being open, like the dates being open. They're so late in the year, and no one really kind of wanted to do one then. So,
it'll be interesting with whether it's the holiday crowds or the holiday sales, or whether at the end of the year people are like, finally, whether everything gets better with the vaccines and everything else like that. Like it'll be interesting for sure.
I know my Florida bud is gonna freeze in Chicago in December. It's like, Dan, why has your blood stopped flowing? Oh, I don't know.
We were joking about that last time because I went to C2E2 for 2019 because my fiance's from there, and she had been for consistent years. And Tony saw me. He's like, "You're not normally here?" And I'm like, "No, we're usually like New England, Boston area." And then we were having a laugh because like Daniel was suffering in the cold because it was late February, early March, and it was because I did that. JR was at PAX East the same weekend, and it was basically the last adventure we had before pandemic shut everything down.
Yep.
Yeah.
But.
Yep.
No, I'm super dreading it. It was funny because I was talking to some people that are nearby. I was like, that came to Dragon Con, and I was like, "Oh, so I'll see you at C2E2." They're like, "In December?" No. I was like, "Come on." He goes, "You're insane."
We hibernate in December.
Yeah, it's like nobody goes to Chicago in December.
My only experience with Chicago was, and this is actually in January too, or in January, it was a couple years ago, but it was
January.
And I was visiting, my wife has some family who lives in Texas, in San Antonio, which was beautiful. Love to go back someday, but we were visiting in Texas, and on our way home, our connecting flight was we were going from San Antonio to Chicago and then back to New England. And this was in January, and in Texas, it was gorgeous, beautiful weather the entire time. And then like 12 hours before our flight is supposed to leave, I get a text message that's like, "Hey, Chicago's completely frozen. You might want to think about that." And I was like,
frozen?
What the hell am I supposed to do with that? So we show up to the airport the next day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, your flight from Chicago to New England is fine, but getting into it's canceled. Sorry." Because Chicago is completely frozen over and they are a block of ice.
Yeah.
So my experience with Chicago is I've never been to Chicago. I was supposed to, but they were frozen over in a hellscape of ice.
Yeah. I remember that year because everyone that lived there that I knew, not Tony, was sending me photos of like sideways icicles and stuff off the sides of their buildings. And I'm like, what is that? I was like, that doesn't look normal.
There is one of those snowpocalypses. Yeah. Was some odd negative something, wind chill, blah, blah, blah. I decided, you know what? I'm still going to go out. I'm going to go for a run. I packed myself up. Had bundled like full on scarf Eskimo kind of thing. You know, I wasn't no shorts and t-shirt kind of a thing, but I had my sunglasses on. I was running maybe like 15 minutes out, and the sunglasses on my face cracked.
Oh my
On my
gosh.
face. I've had these sunglasses through many races and many things. And like I was like, oh, it must be pretty damn cold out there.
That's nature telling you to not do that, Tony.
Let's get back in. Let's get back inside.
Not to mention, running in the cold sucks.
Yes.
You can't breathe. You can't breathe. It's misery.
It's like I'm taking in air, but it doesn't feel like I'm taking in air.
Okay, so we've been chatting for a while. We need to do the usual kind of wrap up stuff here. We've been talking about shows and kind of hinting at stuff coming up. Now, before we end, let's talk about what's coming up. You know, I know the month of October is typically pretty heavy with art lists and daily posts, whether Arttober, Inktober, Drawtober, Drawfebruary,
Drawloween.
Yeah. What's coming up on your guys' respective plates in terms of appearances or stuff you got coming out, Paint Bros. What do you got going on?
I am going to do 2 Arttobers. So I'm going to do, and we are doing a Arttober, and I think are you going to try and do the ink one too, Tony?
I don't know. I'm gonna do it whenever I have it.
Initially, I sent him the list of my ink my ink list, and then we added a whole bunch of alternates, and I was like, pick whichever ones you want to do, and it was like, okay, I'll do an Inktober too, and we got about halfway through, and he was like, don't you have like New York and all these other? He's like, yeah.
Yeah. We'll see how motivated I can be at the airport.
Yeah. So we put out a Arttober list that's a prompt, and we call it Arttober because you use whatever tool you want. As long as you're making art, you don't even have to use tools. One person was like, hey, I do sculpture. I'm going to try to do your challenge. And I was like, sweet, that's awesome. And somebody else was like, I'm an actor, but I'm going to try and do these. And I was like, I'm in. Just make sure you shoot video of it because I want to see this. So it's going to be fun. We did it last year, and I think I got up to 20 before I petered out. I just got too busy and everything else. So this year I swore off conventions. I swore off everything for October, just so, I mean, that's not the only reason, but I'm like, yeah, okay. I think I might even have the time to do it. And then I'm also going to be doing the really popular movie characters for my ink pieces. They're going to be smaller, but basically I'll be doing portraits of my favorite characters from different films and movies. I did it about 6 years ago, and it was really popular. So, yeah.
I have one of them.
Oh, you do? Which one do you have? Hold on.
Are you trying to remember?
You're trying to remember too? I don't know.
Are you? Because I know.
Oh, no, I'm not at all. I really, honestly, I'm at the point where I have sold so much art to so many people. The one thing that I do know is Spiral.
Yep.
I love that piece. Yeah. But no, I don't know which one. Which one did you get?
I have Conan's mom.
Oh my gosh, that's my favorite. That's right. Now that you mentioned it, I remember the conversation. Yes.
He's totally making it up. He does not remember it, really.
No. Because I was like, what the funny part is, that one lasted a while on my table at different conventions because people would come up and they'd be like, I like this one, but I don't know what it is. And I'm like, go away. If you don't know who this is, I don't even want to talk to you.
It's some lady with a sword.
Yeah.
And
she's like holding a little boy, and she's got a big sword, and I don't get it. And they're in the snow, and it's like, dude, everyone and then you would get the random person that walks by, and it's like, dude, that's Conan's mom. And I was like, yes.
Yeah. Yep. So that's exciting to hear. That's rad.
Yeah.
It's almost. Have we seen the joke about like someone drawing a horse and they compare it to like seasons of Game of Thrones, where it's like season 1 through 3, and it's like a perfectly drawn, shaded, and then like by the time we get to season 8, and it's just stick figures.
Yeah, it's like yeah.
Sometimes that's day 1 and day 30 of Inktober.
Yeah, well, there were a couple of animated ones that I was like, oh, thank God, like I can do something really simple. The one that really sticks out in my head was the one that I did of King Kong, which was like day 1 or 2. It was really early, and it was Peter Jackson's King Kong, and the guy who bought it was in Seattle, and he worked at Bungie, and he like came up and he was like, I want that. And I was like, okay. He goes, that's mine. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, I animated King Kong for Peter Jackson. Like, I literally did all the animation, all the keyframe stuff on him. And I was like, are you kidding? And he's like, no, literally, he was my guy. So awesome. I literally sold King Kong to his creator. So
that's rad.
I'm gonna try to keep up, but in October I have 4 conventions out of the 5 weekends that are in October.
You're nuts. There's no way. I'm gonna call it now. Tony's not gonna be able to make it.
I'm not gonna take you on that bet. I'm not gonna take you on that at all. You're probably gonna win that call.
And I say this just to try and egg him on, but I know this is gonna be really hard.
Challenge him.
Yeah.
On top of that, on top of the conventions, and then in October, I'm going to be releasing my first webcomic for the 442nd. Is a watercolor webcomic about the Japanese Americans that fought in World War II. So that'll be happening. Well,
excellent. Now, how about socials? We talked about the Paint Bros.
Daniel Govar on literally everything. GOV as in Victor AR, Daniel in front of it. Yep. And I'm literally on Instagram, you name it.
Are you on TikTok?
I was literally just going to say that
for TikTok because I'm not 12. Every time I go onto TikTok, I feel like the guy that shows up at the playground and there's like a bunch of children.
There's just FBI agents
and
waiting.
I'm like the one in the middle of the merry-go-round. Like I go in and I'm just like, I just want to leave. It's just not mine. It's not my platform. I would rather make longer videos.
True.
The makeup room for the haunted attraction park that I'm working at it's me, and then it's like 10 teenage / mid 20-year-old girls, women, and it's just TikToks all day long, and it's so much.
Yep.
And I just want to.
I've aged out of TikTok. I will fully admit it, and I'm okay with it. Also, it's one other thing I would have to worry about. I've got so many other things to worry about as it is. I need to lessen things, not make another one.
Tony, what do you got for socials?
For me, it's Tony_Moy on pretty much everything
including
out there.
TikTok.
Including TikTok. Twitch, Instagram, obviously TikTok and stuff like that as well. So.
And I believe if I'm reading the internet correctly, it's youtube.com/paintbros.
You got it.
Yes,
all one word, PAINTBROS, Paintbros.
Indeed.
Go check that out.
There's an extra button on the YouTube for the Paint Bros socials, and that goes to the Linkfire page, which looks really nice. And the Linkfire will bring you to both their pages, their art pages, their Instagrams, the YouTube, and also some art supplies. If you want to use the palettes that Tony uses, you don't have to ask in the YouTube comments. It's right there.
Yeah,
there you go.
They're still going to ask.
One of the things that we do. You're just like, well, how do we get, what brushes do we get?
Every day. Yeah. Tony, where do you get the walnut ink?
From Dan. Ask him.
Yeah.
I can tell you, don't get it. It stinks.
Don't get walnut ink.
It smells really funky.
Sounds cool. It sounds beautiful. Don't.
Is that just ink made
Black
from
walnuts?
walnuts?
Yeah, it's such an organic ink.
Yeah.
They have to put a lot of chemicals in it so that it doesn't
It's a
mold.
it's basically a brew.
And so
like you kind of have to cook things down, and it involves this I don't know, it's kind of like rotting black walnuts there's a very particular type of dark black brown that it makes that's actually a really beautiful color.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's totally beautiful.
Yeah.
You open that bottle, and any artist in the room, and it will fill the room.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you exactly what that smells like. Oh, someone just opened up a walnut ink.
You will have 20 people kind of get erect and immediately think what is in my nose right now. I don't like it. Yep.
Do you have to give people a heads up, hey, this ink contains nuts?
I think as long as you don't eat it, you're fine. But
right.
No, it's it has an oil in it that creates kind of let's put it this way: when you open it up, you kind of have to sift it a little bit because it has a film on top of it.
Huh.
And it will regenerate that film, which is weird.
It's good. It kind of popped in because you're talking about painting with walnuts, and I have a friend of mine, their son is deathly allergic. So I wonder if that would pose a problem, smelling it. I don't know.
I don't know, actually. That's a really good question. It's a funky ink. I like it. I don't like the smell.
Right.
And working with it's kind of weird because of the oil it makes. We're used to doing watercolor over top of it, and it almost creates a resist. You can, but you kind of have to do that at the same time. You can't really once it dries, it's kind of useless.
Right. All right. Well, gentlemen, I believe should be time to end.
Definitely
time again.
We've been talking for a while. It's been a great time. Thank you both so much for making the time to do this. I know getting schedules for so many different people can be a little difficult, and especially with shows and all that stuff coming up. So thank you both so much for your time. It's much appreciated. And best of luck with the Paint Bros and all the books and the ink Drawtobers and Arttobers and all that stuff coming up. It sounds great.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for having us, guys.
Absolutely. You guys are, well, I don't know if you caught the announcement, but we're going to be calling it soon. Once we hit episode 450, that's going to be on our 10-year anniversary. We're going to be taking a break.
Yep.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We'll see.
We
hit it in the
break where you just don't know what's going on. You could come back or you could not.
So
open-ended.
I'm gonna stick around. Jared wants some time off, and I have a few ideas, but it's not gonna be the same. But yeah, we hid the message in the actual episodes, so anyone who doesn't listen to our episodes, they've missed it. We haven't posted, just white and black font on our Instagrams and Facebooks yet.
Alex posted a very cryptic, because it was when we started the countdown at there's 16 episodes left or whatever, and I think now we're down to 14 or 13.
Yeah.
Oh my!
And Alex just posted a 16 on our story, and that was it.
Oh man, that is cryptic. That's yeah.
But yes, thank you both so much. I don't know if this is going to be the last time or whatever what the future holds, but you guys have always been extremely kind to us, and coming on and chatting with us, and also just at shows dealing with us, hovering around your table, being those people. So thanks again, guys. It's been a total blast. I'm really happy we got to catch up.
Thank you.
Glad to be on.
Yeah.
All right, that is going to do it. A lot of fun this week, and I think it's a good time to end. So with that said, Until next time, I've been JR.
I'm Alex.
I'm Dan.
I'm Tony.
And this has been I'm stalling for time because I don't have my notes up, episode 436 of Opinions May Vary. Hey everyone, if you liked that episode, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Opinions May Vary, and on Twitter and YouTube at OMV Podcast. You can also find us on Spotify or on our very own website at omvpodcast.com. And if you're looking for merch, we have stickers and pins available over at omvpodcast.bigcartel.com while supplies last. As always, thank you so much for listening. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and we will see you next time.